Hi everyone, I'm Cassie, Head of Fundraising and Communications at Prisoners Education Trust. Normally at this time of year, many of us would be together at PET's Carol concert, but sadly this year that isn't possible. So we wanted to make this short film to show you everything that you've helped PET achieve during 2020 and to say thank you.
We had to act quickly, really, because prison, as you can imagine, is a quite bleak place anyway. People are deprived of their liberty, but at least they would normally get to exercise, get to have some education. Since March, basically, that's all come to an end.
It's really difficult, impossible for them to kind of engage with learning in the same way that they did before lockdown. For example, there have been really few exams this year, so people haven't been able to achieve the qualifications that they've been hoping for. And often those qualifications are really important for people to get through their sentencing plan.
They spend at least 23 hours out of 24 behind a door, often with no one to communicate with. It can affect people's mental health, and just speaking to people who are in those situations, you can hear that they're often at their wits' end, you know.
We've been trying to campaign for the reopening of face-to-face teaching and education, whilst outside prisons, colleges, universities, schools have all reopened. They've stayed shut in prisons, which I think makes it really difficult for people to prepare for life outside.
I was uneducated. I never had that privilege, so I had no qualifications whatsoever. And then suddenly I was doing these courses, getting all these qualifications in, started doing my degree and then getting all the passes. I'm going, actually, I'm not stupid.
We have found really good ways to adapt, and I think the advice line has almost been a lifeline for people as well. It's really helped people to access distance learning.
People could call us and make inquiries about distance learning courses. Often they didn't really know what it was, so we explained what the distance learning course was. Explained how they could apply for a grant, gave them advice on what might be best for them in their situation. We wondered at first how successful it would be, but within a few weeks, we'd already had over 100 calls. And now, 6 months later, we've had over 1,000 calls from, I think it was 89 different prisons. I think it's a remarkable reach that we've been able to get to speak to that many people.
At the start of the lockdown, one of the main things we did was to launch the Incel Activity Hub, which is a kind of library of resources. So far, we've had more than 170 contributions, and these have included things like creative writing resources, arts materials, reading and literature materials, philosophy quizzes, so a really wide range. So the resource library has been accessed more than 3,500 times, which I think is amazing. Our members all bring their own area of expertise. So we have some organizations that are part of the Alliance who specialize in therapeutic group work, and they produced some really great worksheets on storytelling, which by the end they had a story which they could share with their families and their children. So a lot of the materials are ways to bring prisoners together with their families in a time when contact has been really hard.
Education was a key factor for me because it was a way of, I used it as to kill the time, because I could see 6 years and I knew that I could get a degree within 6 years of being in prison. You have time to think about everything that you've done in your last or in your life, and then just to go, how can I change? How can I utilize this time now to say, right, I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm not that person. I have to change. What do I need to do to change?
The PET short courses, we first started them back in May of 2020. We had to try and think of new ways to deliver them, and the first thing we decided to do was do them through our Unilink system. The short courses were basically essential learning skills, which gives residents experience in doing distance learning, writing essays, some grammar and spelling. It actually did test a couple of them, because a lot of them were low literacy, for example. And I know a lot of our men, if they don't go to education, they never kind of get that qualification or that reward from it. So I felt like they got a feeling of accomplishment, especially when they were so run down and locked up all day and they weren't feeling like they were achieving anything. It was really nice of them to have that sense of achievement.
The Lamy event was sort of recognising it had been 3 years since the Lamy review had been published, and it was a way for the charity sector, led by the Prisoners Education Trust, to take stock and to look at what had been achieved in those 3 years. The event was important because for a large number of organisations within the charity sector, we feel that not enough has been done, and the event was a really powerful way to remind government, but also the wider charity sector, that this discrimination that disproportionately targets Black and brown communities cannot continue. So we ran a number of different focus groups in different prisons, and I think this is a quotation from one of the guys who was in the focus group. So he said about education, "It motivates me. It shows us that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that knowledge is power. It helps you to think about life. It gives you a chance to develop." And it just kind of shows the importance of education as a form of providing sanctuary. So prisons in themselves, in my opinion, are places of harm. And one of the things that education allows us to do is to lessen that harm, so that when people return to society, they have more of a fighting chance to be able to lead their lives and fulfill their potential.
This year alone, in 2020, we've funded, I think it's 843 courses, and we've still got 2 more monthly funding cycles to go. So we should get that over 1,000, potentially 1,000 lives transformed.
The beauty of PET is that it has industry recognised qualifications that we can actually provide for a population which has often been overlooked.
It is a powerful tool, and there needs to be more access to it in prisons, because there's a lot of lads who are going under the radar who are good lads. They just don't know they are.
And I think prisons aren't places of hope necessarily. It's not what they lend themselves to. And so I think a lot of the work that we do, and I think the great work that Prisoners Education Trust does, is around lessening that harm and providing hope.
That education has saved me and helped me get through, and it's put me onto a better pedestal now for the rest of my days. And knowing that I'm not an idiot, basically. So I have that piece of paper. I know it's not about the paper, but it's just to say, actually, I'm all right. I can do this. I can achieve.
And obviously, none of this would be possible without the people who fund Prisoners Education Trust.
Thank you to all the people who've been funding us. I don't know whether they really understand the impact that they're having.
And I just want to say a big thanks to Prisoners Education Trust and all of their supporters, and being such open-minded and collaborative partners in the difficult work that we're trying to do.
Thank you to PET and all your supporters. Thank you.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rod Clark, and I'm immensely proud to say that for the last 8 years, I've been Chief Executive of Prisoners Education Trust. Now, over that time, I have been hugely grateful for the support that you have given to prison education, and especially over this past year, when the times for prisoners trying to get education have been so very, very difficult. For me personally, it's particularly sad that we're not getting together this year for our usual glass of mulled wine and mince pie, because in 2021, next year, I'll be retiring as chief executive. But I will be watching from the sidelines as PET goes from strength to strength with your support. And I will be very much looking forward for a more traditional celebration next year. It only remains for me to say thank you and have yourself a very merry and very safe holiday season. Merry Christmas.